Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar hosted by Electric House. I am George Smith. I look a lot like that picture there, but just a lot more handsome. So please do just bear that in mind. I am on the social media team here at Electric House. Now, today's webinar is Your Brand Isn't Boring, but Your Social Might Be. That's today's discussion. We're talking about how any brand can create unique and exciting social content. But what is boring? That is the question for today. Think about this. Is having seen every episode of Agatha Christie's Poirot boring? Don't think so. You know, is describing an M&S cashmere jumper as a cut above boring? Definitely not. And he's been on first name terms with the staff at Oak Furnitureland boring? I beg to differ, which is exactly why I've been asked to host today's webinar. You don't think your brand's boring, so how do you show that to everyone else? And here to talk through that question and more, we've got a fantastic group of speakers today. My colleagues, Jamie Elkins and Beth Dunmore from Electric House, and we're very pleased to welcome Olivia Webb from Red Sprout Media, who actually, I will have to point this out, in the just before we got started in the webinar, informed us that Red Sprout were up against On the Tools in a award in a year gone by, and they beat us. So, you know, that soured it for me, to be honest. But hey, can't have it all. Come on, let's crack on. Before we get into the talks, a quick reminder that Electric House, you'll probably know, we manage on a budget and on the tools. Now, many of you are going to be aware of this, but the reason for me raising it is the fact that as these networks focus primarily on construction and DIY, many of the brands and clients that we work closely with might not be what the average person deems as being exciting. You know, workwear brands, tool companies, they're not necessarily going to be put in the same category as Adidas, Tesla, you know, or Apple perhaps. However, from a social perspective, this offers a really unique opportunity because social media thrives entirely on unique communities finding their voice. So if a brand occupies a niche lane, actually that offers itself a blank canvas to create some really unexpected social content, which we'll be hearing about today from our speakers who are going to be able to talk about this far less rambling and far more articulately than I can. So on to today's first speaker, personal brand manager and my colleague here at Electric House, and someone who I can confidently say outside of my team, the social team, knows social far better than anyone else in the business. So he's perfectly poised to kick things off today. Jamie, over to you, baby. Should just specify, Jamie, you might still be on mute. I'm so sorry about that.
There we go. Wow. Bloody 8 months in and I still can't find the unmute button. This is going well so far. Thank you so much, George, for that absolutely wonderful introduction. I really appreciate it. Although, you know, it's great to be known as one of the greatest social media managers of all time, as George pointed out, but I'm not here today for that really. I'm here because, you know, if you're, you know, creating content on social, if you're selling something, you're probably going to be selling to me. I am all over socials. I just cannot stop consuming content. So yeah, I'm mainly going to go over kind of like some B2C products because I know that Olivia is just going to absolutely smash out kind of B2B. And I'm kind of going to go over what makes content accessible because unaccessible content is just a bit boring, isn't it? So yeah, that's me. Thank you very much. I'm going to do a quick plug now of going off script for the Lee and Adam YouTube channel. So Lee, our CEO, and Adam, our co-founder, creative director. We started a new YouTube channel, so make sure you get on that, baby. Amazing. So can I control the screen? I can. So I want to introduce you to a brand called FlexSeal. So they're kind of like off the cuff. They look something like you'd see in kind of like Halfords or B&M. On the surface, probably a boring brand. They've got like products that are, you know, waterproof taping for leaking roofs, sealing, that kind of thing. But they become one of the most successful brands on social. That's a bit of a claim, but I'm going to run with it. And I'm going to talk through how they've done this. So to start off with, I know not every brand is right for TikTok, but I think the kind of things I'm going to go through kind of resonate on every single platform. But to start off with, at the beginning of the year, TikTok ran a campaign called Create TikToks, Not Ads. And I think this is probably the biggest reason that this brand has found success on TikTok and other platforms. You know, they don't create adverts for their products, but they do create TikToks. TikTok is just an absolutely amazing playground for brands. There's like a low barrier for entry in terms of content creation, content production, but you can get pretty outrageous and pretty silly without having to be very brave. Not only that, but like most of the content that you can create is the content ideation is already done for you, because you can just kind of hop on trends and that kind of thing. And if you can find a creative way for your brand to be on TikTok and develop those trends, then there's a really super high chance of your brand being successful and not boring. So why FlexSeal? Why them? Why are they great? Why are they amazing? So I'm going to show you a little TikTok that they created. It's like a really basic TikTok. It kind of uses one of the sounds from the actual platform. It looks pretty boring, but it's when you're actually watching your feed, it's like really interesting. It's really engaging. I watch it. It stops scrolling my screen. Can't speak words. So I think what they're really, really good at is creative storytelling. I genuinely believe, done in the right way, there's like nothing more impactful than just telling your story, not selling a product. They don't sell their products on social media. They tell stories with them, which is super, super important. They do this really well because they have an absolutely incredible understanding of the platforms. They don't just hop on like any trend that comes up. They know which ones are going to allow them to develop their brand and tell a unique story. And so, yeah, it's really, really great. They've got a massive understanding of the platform. It's so important. If you don't know how to use the platforms, then, you know, how are you supposed to create really good content for it? So what does this all mean? Why is this video good? Well, I mean, if you look at it in terms of engagements, we've got like 22 million views, over like a comment section is like in my way, so I can't see, but 3.4 million likes, 2.23 comments, and it's just amazing engagement, and their social channels are absolutely incredible. So why is they successful? So I think one thing they do really, really well is they show the benefits of the products rather than the features. So I think the most famous example of this in like marketing and advertising is, you know, the Apple iPod. Rather than it's got 1 gig of storage for MP3 songs, it's 1,000 songs in your pocket. And this is what FlexSeal do. They don't, you know, tell you what the adhesiveness level of your product is, but what they do is they cut a bow in half and then they drive it across a river, sealing it up with their products. There's a big difference in that. And as someone who is in the personal branding game, they've created a brand ambassador of their CEO. So the geezer you saw in the actual TikTok itself was their CEO, Phil. Now, I could talk to you for hours about why personal branding is important, but he now has credibility and like influence and authority in his space. And that's why personal branding is super, super important. Make your marketing more human. Have someone who's going to be a face of your brand if you can. I genuinely believe that like CEOs are your like most powerful marketing tool. And finally, like they use value and humor. Like it's the most, come on, like it's the basics. Like, you know, value and humorous content is gonna do well. I don't scroll up and think, great, another advert. I think this is going to be funny and valuable. I might actually learn something from it. So like I said at the beginning, don't create, adverts, create content that you want to see in between the adverts. And I think that kind of leads me nicely on to, especially when you're creating like accessible content and making sure you've got the right tone. Don't just be boring in your replies. There's a big difference between replying to someone and engaging with them. So FlexSeal are amazing at having like a unique kind of tone of voice in the comment section. It's kind of not very replicable from other people. If you're not engaging with your people, you're doing something wrong. Why should anybody care? Why are people going to come back? Why are people going to engage with your content again? Amazing. So that's my kind of bring us on to kind of my final kind of slides. And it's a campaign from a fundraising called Know Your Lemons. So usually like fundraising campaigns can be quite repetitive and boring. Repetitive equals boring. And I think we've seen brands like Movember kind of challenge this stereotype, but there's still quite a lot of, fundraising campaigns out there kind of stuck in the mud really. And this is why Know Your Lemons, know their social. It's a breast cancer awareness campaign, something that's pretty difficult to talk about. And they've really kind of flipped the coin and created some really vibrant content, which is super accessible for not just women, but men as well. If you look at some of the stuff on the right here, it's informative, it's valuable, it's eye-catching. Again, it's like the basics. But when I see the CTA in the corner, I kind of, it's not in my face, it's not a thing, but it's also super, super clear. I know where I've got to go, I know what I've got to do. And I'm more likely to do that because they've offered some really interesting, valuable content that's really kind of stuck out. So I guess to conclude, oh no, I've done it, George, I've gone over the slide, but to conclude, just get jiggy with it, create the content that you want to see, not what your KPIs want to see, and do some personal branding if you can. I hope that wasn't too much of a rant and a ramble. I've kind of lost my head now. But I'm really amazingly happy to pass over to Olivia Webb from RedSpout. This is why I'm here. This is why I wanted to do this webinar. So yeah, I'll pass over to Olivia or George.
There we go. Thank you, Jamie. Just before I bring Olivia on, just want to quickly remind everybody, we are going to be having a Q&A at the end of the webinar today. So please do pop your questions in, and all of today's speakers will no doubt be able to answer those as fully as we can later on. Just before I bring Olivia on, I do just want to preface, as much as I was having a dig that she told us she beat us in an award, which I'm taking very personally, she is somebody who really first sprung to mind when we started thinking about this idea for this webinar. So I won't ramble too much. Olivia, thank you very much. Over to you.
Thank you. Well, thank you guys for a very warm welcome. I'm glad there's no hard feelings on the award. I love what you do. I've always liked what you do. So when I was invited to be on the webinar, I thought, oh my God, we were up against them on an award thing a couple of years ago. How things come full circle. And Jamie, I love your advice of getting jiggy with it. For B2B social content, I will take that one with me. So yeah, my name's Liv. I'm co-founder at RedSpout Media. We actually used to be a recruitment agency for 4 years. Then 2020 happened and we became a marketing agency, long story short. Just before the pandemic really hit, we started doing LinkedIn boot camps. We were doing quite a bit of social media training and workshops here and there. And then lockdown happened and we thought, you know what, let's just do it. Let's become a full social media marketing agency instead. So yeah, that's why I'm here today, I guess. And I'm going to be talking to you guys about how we actually launched the original RedSpout brand. So yeah, I'll get cracking. Hopefully I can use this clicker. Yes, yeah, cool. Okay, so I believe there's 5 things that contributed to the success of the RedSpout recruitment brand. As I think we can all appreciate, recruitment is not a sexy subject. I don't want to read stuff about recruitment. I don't care about recruitment. I doubt any of you guys do. So there's a few little things that we did to build our recruitment brand and to build our client base in a way that meant we never picked up the phone. I've never made a sales call in my life. I'm not a salesy person whatsoever. That is not something I want to be doing. And so as a result of our LinkedIn content, all of our client inquiries, our new business, all our leads, they all came inbound to us. And I think these are the 5 reasons that we made this happen. So number 1, we gave stuff away, and I'll go through all of these as we go. We are never afraid of looking stupid or doing anything mad. Don't be a sheep, talk like a human, very important in B2B. And then also driving creativity within your teams too. So just a little caveat before I go too much further. A lot of you watching, I think, will be looking at B2B social content from the perspective of your company pages. Bit of a disclosure, all of our content comes through our personal pages. So as Jamie touched on a little bit before, we built personal brands to build our company brand. I came up with this little one-liner the other day, guys, and I'm really proud of it. So if you see anyone else say this on LinkedIn, you know where it came from first, okay? Your personal page is your company page with a face. How good is that? I say that all the time now. So that's what we believe. We do all our branding through our personal pages. So yeah, this is just a little caveat before I go much further. All of this content we've done from personal pages, but hopefully it can still apply to company pages if you still have to use those. I know some of you will do. So yeah, number one, giving stuff away. So how we actually built the brand right at the beginning, this is about 4 years ago. We got on video, not many people were doing that. I'm not actually going to talk about video that much. We are quite known for our video, but I thought I'm not the right person to talk about video, so I'm just going to talk about the general stuff. So yeah, we gave lots of knowledge away, whether that was about recruitment, whether it was about marketing. As soon as we became a bit more well known for our video marketing, we would just share all our tips. We'd share how we got to get all these inbound leads, how we got to a place where we didn't need to pick up the phone, we didn't need to pitch for work. We shared all of that advice. And that built a lot of trust. Sharing kind of knowledge from a B2B perspective is a way of building authority. I think that's probably the one thing all B2B brands should be doing. We gave our secrets away. I'm not sure how much you guys know about recruitment, but in the world of recruitment, you don't tend to talk about who your clients are. That's for two reasons. One being your competitors can go after your clients. Two being candidates can kind of cut you out the picture. So if you're saying who's hiring, I could be saying Electric House are looking for a community manager. Those candidates could be inclined to go straight to Electric House, cut us as recruiters out of the picture, and we don't make any money. But we didn't care about any of that. We instead wanted to just share everything and be very transparent. We've always been very, very open with everything that we do, because we believe that having that trust and transparency was much more important. It kind of outweighed the risk of losing potential fees. And it worked, because I think recruitment has a very bad reputation from both a client and candidate perspective. It's definitely an industry which is lacking in trust. So by doing that, we kind of changed the image of the recruitment industry, or at least for our brand anyway. And then finally, we gave away actual stuff. Now, as recruiters, your product is people, and that sounds pretty savage, but that's just a fact. People are your product. What we do is on Fridays, we did videos with candidates who were looking for a job. We posted them on LinkedIn. We called it No Fee Friday, and we would give candidates away for free. And these little mini campaigns would be to target people who were hiring. Again, it could be someone like Electric House. They'd then get in touch with us. Oh, great, a free candidate, no $5,000 recruitment fees. They'd get in touch. We've then got our foot in the door with that client. We're opening up sort of conversation and building a relationship. And then more often than not, those people became long-term paying clients. It was a great way of getting our foot in the door, and it just was an amazing business development channel. Still now, as Red Sprout Media, we do follow that strategy. So only recently, we did a competition where a business could win a month's worth of social media. All they had to do was just say why they wanted to win it. Any business, didn't matter. Put your email in, tell us why you want to win. It generated over 200 competition entries. That then gave us a database of 200 businesses who were looking for help with their social media and who wanted to work with us. Immediately, that's 200 leads. We also had a winner that we're doing some work for now, with the aim that eventually they'll be a paying client, and if not, they can at least recommend us. We can use the work as a case study. So yeah, we gave stuff away all the time. Obviously, there's no such thing as a free lunch. There's always something in it for us. And that comes back to the honesty and sort of transparency thing as well with the competition. we did say, what is in it for us? Well, we'll have your data and then tick this box if it's all right with you, and we'll contact you in future and see if you want to work with us and send you our marketing emails. So yeah, giving stuff away is the #1 tip of how we got started. #2, don't be afraid. So we've done so much mad shit on social media you wouldn't believe. We've had ridiculous ideas, but one of our almost missions in the office is fail fast. If you're doing something crazy, go for it. Who cares? Who cares what you look like? Who cares if it doesn't work out? If it doesn't work out, cool, forget about it. No one else remembers. I couldn't tell you when another brand has done something that I thought was boring or silly, or it didn't get much engagement on that post. You don't remember what other people do. You only it only eats you up, which is stupid anyway. So yeah, we're always pushing boundaries. We're always trying new things and testing and making up our own rules and finding out what works for us. It's very easy to kind of there's a lot of gurus and coaches and people out there telling you this and that, but really ultimately you've got to make your own rules. You've got to test and find out what works for you. This screenshot here, I'm not as technical as the Electric House guys, so I didn't know how to put a video into this. So all of my video examples are just like screenshots, so cool. So this is a video of one that me and Mark did recently, where we had a really honest conversation. And I think it was pushing the boundaries, because I was essentially having a go at him. You know, when you're sat there and your head down and you're doing your work, and then someone comes over and they're always interrupting you. And I said to him, look, you just don't respect my time. And it was a bit of a tense conversation. I don't know why we even filmed it. I think we've always just got in the back of our mind, or what could make good LinkedIn content, which sounds weird, but it works. Yeah, so we put this video out. It obviously resonated with a lot of people, because we've all been there with annoying bosses or colleagues. And so, yeah, it's just a piece of relatable content that is still within the kind of B2B realm. So, yeah, don't be afraid to try this stuff. It's always worth doing. You're going to regret, what's that phrase? You regret more of what you don't do than what you do, I think. So, yeah, that's #2. #3, don't be a sheep. You need to leave LinkedIn. So I know I'm talking about a lot about LinkedIn here. Maybe yours is Twitter, TikTok, whatever it is, but whatever social platform that you're focused on, leave it. If you're stuck for inspiration, leave it, because you're not going to get inspiration staying in the same place amongst the same kind of echo chamber of opinions that exist on these platforms. LinkedIn especially, you see a lot of the same stuff day in, day out. So you're not going to get any inspiration there. What we tend to do is we look at YouTube. We actually look at TikTok a lot. I love Twitter, although apparently no one else does. I think I'm in the minority there. And then we take these ideas and bring them to LinkedIn. There's no harm in doing that. Just because LinkedIn, you're told that things should be a certain way because LinkedIn is LinkedIn and TikTok is TikTok, it doesn't have to be like that. To innovate, you need to bring change to a platform. So please do experiment with other platforms, be on other social platforms, even if it's just on a personal level. So you're researching. Yeah, do that. Just get out of your echo chamber, wherever that is. Have an opinion. And this is definitely probably more applies to personal branding, but it's very important if you want to get good engagement anyway, to have an opinion and stick by it. There's a lot of posts that are very on the fence and they're boring. If you wanted on the fence content, you could just read an article, something that was very impartial. You could just watch the news or read an article. Social media is where you can voice your opinion from your perspective. And I think that's really important if you're going to prompt intelligent discussion. So I really would have an opinion, stand by it. Please don't end your posts with thoughts or agree. Please don't do that. Just have an opinion, stand by it, and yeah, encourage a bit of debate. And then lastly on this one, I don't know if this is a phrase or if this is just a phrase in our office, but be mindful of content fatigue. When there's trends on social, obviously at first they're exciting and new and everyone jumps on them. and then they get boring very quickly. Something that I've got in mind at the moment is on LinkedIn. I'd say this time last year, the trend or the advice was to start opening up more on LinkedIn and being more vulnerable. And now it's like, oh my God, every other post is something like, I met a homeless man outside my office and I bought him a coffee and he ended up being my best hire. And, you know, just all these kind of fluffy stories, or, you know, those posts that lead with something really dramatic, like I cried in my pitch or something. I don't know, it's all just getting really boring now. So if something's boring you, it's boring other people. So just be really mindful of what's not working on LinkedIn as well as what is. So just following on from that slide a little bit, again, this is my really good slide making skills where I've got no idea how to put a video in there, so it's just a nice screenshot. Look at what your competitors would never do, and I think this is an example of a piece of content that we've done that I can't imagine many of our competitors at the time doing. And that is, we basically took the right piss out of clients and marketing job descriptions and employee benefits and stuff like that. So we did this video pretending to be an agency called Deluded Potato, and I think this video is really funny, but I would because I'm biased. And yeah, so we were just really poking fun at our industry, and it went down really well. It showed actually that we were very knowledgeable about our industry. We just went about it in a way that was fun and entertaining and that was relatable for a lot of people. So yeah, look at what everyone's doing and what's getting boring. Don't do that. What have you seen on Twitter but never on LinkedIn? Again, same goes for TikTok, Instagram. And what inspiration can you take from B2C brands as well? Big one for B2B social media, talk like a human. No one likes jargon. Things like, what do I always see? Technology solutions provider. I don't know what that means. What's a technology solutions provider? What, you know, just forget all the jargon, be clear in what you do, be playful. Great B2C brand to take inspiration from with this is Innocent. Everyone loves innocent social content. I love their tone of voice on social. So yeah, be playful. Again, be honest. I think massive one for B2B. And tell stories. Everyone sort of bangs on about storytelling in social media marketing, whether that's B2B or B2C. And there's a reason for that. It's so important at the moment. The next slide is an example of some content that I believe kind of encapsulates a few of these things, or yeah, all three of these things. So like most other people, I was furloughed towards the beginning of this year. I did a post about it. I just remembered actually, I actually got in a bit of trouble because I was using LinkedIn when I was furloughed, and loads of people got on their high horse and they're like, you shouldn't be using LinkedIn, you're furloughed, that counts as work. I don't think it does because it's not revenue generating. Anyway, that's another story, I'm rambling. So yeah, so I was furloughed at the beginning of this year, did a post about it. It's quite lighthearted, playful, again, honest. So I think it kind of taps into those three things mentioned before. You know, things like, who am I going to have raging arguments in the office with? Who's going to buy me breakfast and call it an SLT meeting? I'll stick Pointless back on and return to looking at mini dumpling makers. I didn't ever get a mini dumpling maker, actually. Anyway, yeah, so this obviously resonated with a lot of people. It got really good engagement at the time. 4 months later, I was over the moon to be able to do a similar post. I used the same picture of our team, kind of announcing their redundancies, which was obviously horrible. Like I said, we were a recruitment agency and then pivoted in order to survive to become a marketing agency, and they were recruiters. They started, Meg started her own estate agents, Harry started his own recruitment agency, and it was just wrapping up that story and taking our followers on a journey of our brand and our lives. And we do share everything on social, and people do get quite invested in everything. So it's really nice to be able to kind of wrap this story up. We speak to Harry and Meg on a pretty much weekly basis. We're actually on the BBC again next week because the BBC picked up this first story And I was interviewed about being furloughed, which was like the most nerve-wracking thing ever. And I only did it because I knew my grandma would have a go at me if I didn't do it. So I made her proud and went on the BBC. And then this one, weirdly, they've called me again and want to interview all of us about the story of it all. So you never know what kind of opportunities can come from sharing stories on social, and stories exist everywhere, but it really is down to involving the people within your business to get those stories. That leads me on really nicely to talking about your team and who you work with. And I actually think when I was putting this together, I thought of this last, driving creativity, and it is the final point anyway. But I actually thought, what really built the brand? What has actually really enabled us to do all of this stuff? And I believe that is our team. We empower everyone to have a voice. We encourage everyone to challenge each other, share opinions. Everyone is involved in the creative decision-making process, full stop, really. We collaborate on everything. I always used to be pretty guilty of working very independently, head down. I'm quite a perfectionist, and so if I get excited by something, I'll start working on it, and I don't want to show anyone until it's finished. I think, oh no, just leave me alone, I want to do it on my own. But then you get stuck at some point, and then it actually takes so much longer than if you'd have just involved everyone in the first place, all had a brainstorm, and then went off and did your slides or whatever it is. So I think just having those kind of team brainstorming sessions, respecting everyone's opinion, no matter kind of what their job role is. We don't have an accounts or an HR or an IT or whatever department at work, but if we did, you know, I would be speaking to those different people and getting their perspectives, because you need that diversity within your team to drive innovation. And then again, I know I've said it loads, but fail fast is just our absolute motto on how to be creative with social. And I know this is all much easier said than done for a lot of you. I know that I've worked on the global marketing team before, and I understand the nightmare approval processes that are involved, and you know, decisions that have to come from the top and waiting for sign off and blah blah blah. I know that you can't all be really super flexible, and fail fast is a lot easier said than done. So I kind of just want to highlight that you can still be creative, you can still apply these points. I've got a couple of examples here. Zoom is promoting Zoomtopia. I don't know what that is, but it sounds really boring. But they've done that in a way which is, you know, they're referencing something topical content, which is working from home. They're making it quite light-hearted and jokey, and I love that. Same goes for HubSpot. They're speaking as if they are a human being. If that logo wasn't there, if that was a face, you wouldn't think anything of it. That feeling when you accidentally like an Instagram post. They're just talking like a human, so it is possible. So yeah, overall, aim to humanize your brand, get everyone involved, make it fun, make the process fun, and try and make your content fun. And that is everything from me. I can't remember who's next. I think it's Bethany. Yeah, thank you so much, guys. And if you have any questions, leave them in the chat.
Wicked. Thank you very much, Olivia. That was fantastic. Hopefully some of you took some really great points away from that. I've seen there's a few messages coming into the chat already as well. So please do get your questions coming in for the Q&A at the end of the webinar today. Moving on to our final speaker today, creative leads here at Electric House. Beth, over to you.
Thank you, George. And before I start, I have to say, Liv, I also absolutely love Twitter. I spend all of my downtime on Twitter, no shame. So I'm creative lead at Electric House, and essentially what that means is that I work on ideation, so coming up with ideas for all of our B2B and B2C brand, and also I am the gatekeeper for all of the copy. So across my career history, I've worked with all different kinds of clients, and those have included the likes of air compressors, industrial air curtains, toilet roll holders. So I do know my stuff when it comes to finding ways to make absolutely every brand interesting on social. Hopefully the clicker works. And it's not. Oh wait, there we go. Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about, and this is the unsexy part of my section, is what do you want to achieve? And this, I feel, is something that a lot of people don't ask themselves when they start building their brand on social. Ultimately, if you want to achieve a particular objective, you have to do certain things. And if you're not willing to do those certain things, you should probably change your objective. So for example, reach. Obviously, everybody wants to go viral, but in order to do that, you have to accept certain things. So for example, you have to have minimal branding. It's incredibly rare that a video with heavy commercial branding goes viral. You need to knock that out straight away. It needs to be relatable, at least to your audience, if not across the spectrum, and it needs to be emotionally provocative. So what I mean by emotionally provocative is not necessarily the tearjerker, Britain's Got Talent vibes, but just something that provokes a strong reaction, whether that is humor, whether that's shock, surprise, whether that is emotion. It needs to make your audience feel something. So essentially, if you want to go viral, have a think about whether that's really something you can achieve within your brand guidelines, whether that's something you can really get over the line. Growth. So this is an interesting one for me because I don't think that growth necessarily is about content so much as about community management. If you want to grow your following on social media, you need to spend the time, as both Liv and Jamie referenced, actually interacting with your audience in a way that feels human, in a way that feels authentic, and that needs to be an always on. For example, I used to work for a brand that was targeted towards plumbers, and I would say most of the community management work I did was between the hours of 5 and 10 p.m. because that's when the plumbers are at home and they're on social when they're not working. So if that's what you're after, you need to bear that in mind. Clicks, again, this is something that we have to explain to clients quite a lot, is that the social media landscape has changed. 5 years ago, you could get clicks, you could get growth, you could get basically whatever you wanted through social because it was still in its infancy. But obviously, all of the major platforms have now monetized themselves. They're all businesses. So ultimately, they're going to want money out of you if you're going to get clicks. So you need to think about paid, targeted content, and you also need to ensure that that targeted content is value add for your audience. As we all know, when you're scrolling through your Facebook timeline, 90% of the adverts you're probably going to ignore. You almost barely see them. So if you're going to put something, if you're going to pay to put something in front of your potential prospects, make sure it's something that's actually super relevant, unique to you, and adds value to their lives. Finally, if you want to achieve engagement, controversy is your first port of call. Really easy. Again, I appreciate that's not something that's easy to do if you're a large business or a very formal business, but it is a quick win in terms of getting engagement. Polls and questions, and I caveat that with not do you love product A or product B, but stuff that's relevant to your audience. Probably personally, I mean, the classic example that we throw around on the trade side is, what sauce do you have in your sandwiches, red or brown? That's about them. It interacts them in a way which feels personal and meaningful, rather than asking them about a product which they may or may not have actually tried yet. And audience reflection. So this essentially means aligning your content to meet what your audience is doing. So for us, we already have established communities. So we go through those communities and we see what they're talking about. We see what the trends are. We see what they're posting, and we literally just recycle it and we mirror it. If you don't have that community yet and you're starting from zero, go to your competitors' communities, see what people are saying, go anywhere where you think your members, your community, your following might be, and just copy what they're talking about. People want to talk to people who sound like themselves, so always bear that in mind. So just to sum up this slide, for the sanity of your marketing people, think about what's required to achieve your aims. If you cannot do zero branding, forget about virality. If you don't have the time to be engaging 9 to 5 and beyond, maybe dial back your growth expectations. Just think about what's realistic within your personal parameters and tailor your KPIs around that. So, slightly more exciting slide. This is about fail-safe content pillars. What I mean by that is when you start your social program, when you start planning content, it can feel super overwhelming because you're like, oh God, I have to come up with something interesting to say every single day for months on end. The easiest way to start is to put together content pillars which work for your brand. So that gives you a baseline and it ensures consistency because you'll always be drawing from the same sort of pots. These are just a few that always work. So the first one is fame, and the fame is typically a one-off if you're a smaller business. something you do once a year, or if you're a bigger business, it's something that would still be infrequent because generally it's high budget. So this example is for a clamp brand, not the most exciting of products, but it was made exciting by putting together, oh, that's not worked, putting together a video of how it can be used in an exciting way. So this video essentially shows stuntmen putting together a ramp using just timber and Irwin clamps. So the stuntmen talk through the fact that normally when they're working on professional blockbuster sets, it's all mechanical, hours of engineering, days and days of I don't know, mechanics go into putting these ramps together, but they're doing it with just clamps. So as you can see, absolutely loads of branding in there, absolutely loads of product placement, but it's not boring because ultimately who doesn't want to see a car drive and jump off the top of a ramp over 5 other cars? Very interesting, however, very expensive. On the more affordable side of things, there is shock or surprise content. This for me is one of my favorite videos. They're actually one of my favorite trade brands. It's Big Wipes, and they've literally just got their intern to demonstrate how their product works. And this went viral on Facebook. So as you can see, it's just a piece of camera. It's been filmed on someone's iPhone. All he's doing is absolutely mucking up his hands with all different things you find on site, which is extremely relatable to the audience. And then he's going to get the product in. I mean, I also really appreciate the fact that the things he's mucking his hands with are also on brand. You've got your yellow and black, which are your classic Big Wipes colours there. So he's getting the wipe now. And as you can see, it's pretty amazing the effect it immediately has on his hands. And it's kind of super satisfying to watch, even if you're not in the trade. Incredible. The fact that that was done for probably a couple of quid is an example of how you can make your content interesting, no matter how everyday or mundane your brand might be. This is one of ours. So this is humorous content, which again gets the brand in straight away. So we did this for a client of ours, UK Flooring Direct. And it's just a sketch about if UK Flooring Direct were your apprentice. So as you can see, the brand is in there straight away at the very top of the video, but that doesn't stop it from being humorous because it's very, very relatable to our audience. You're seeing your expectations raised. The apprentice looks like he's not going to do the job, and then confounded when the apprentice is absolutely amazing. So it's not all about the brand. There's no shots of Flooring Direct products in there, but you get the idea that it's your perfect partner, that it's always there for you, that it's really helpful in a way which is humorous and engaging to the relevant audience. And finally, value. So when I say value, this can mean exclusive deals and offers, but it also can just mean like hacks and how-tos. So our On a Budget audience, as mentioned by George at the start, are all about DIY. This particular brand, DC Fix, we just put together an extremely quick how-to for them. I think this might have done over 1 million at this point. And as you can see, it's literally just somebody recovering their door. It's not super high budget. You could do this very cheaply. You probably could also do this on your iPhone, and it just adds value to the audience because it's showing them how to do something that we know that they want to do. It's pretty simple stuff. So these pillars, sorry, I'm just trying to pause that. These pillars are great places to start and to tailor to your budget and to your type of business. Fame might not be within your reach because you might not have that kind of budget. Or humor might not be right for you because you might be a very corporate business. But one of these at least will be a good place to start in terms of creating content which you know will be engaged with by your following. Very, very quickly, because I'm aware time's marching on, I'll just run you through my golden rules. Do be brave. This is something that Liv and Jamie have both mentioned. Understand that that's difficult, but it's very important. You have to do something different. Otherwise, it's so easy to just get overwhelmed by all the noise on social media. If you cannot be brave, if you've got a really scary board that's telling you absolutely not, you have to have extremely corporate social media presence, lower your expectations, lower their expectations. Ultimately, if you can't be bold on social, if you can't offer any of those elements that I've just discussed in terms of humor, in terms of shock, in terms of emotion, then you have to understand that you'll only get so far. And it might even be worth considering why you're using social media if you're not able to produce content which will work. Follow the 80-20 ratio. So 80% of your content should be geared towards entertaining and engaging your audience. Doesn't necessarily need to be branded. It needs to be stuff that is for their benefit and not for yours. That gets people to follow you and actually engage with you regularly, rather than just seeing you as someone who's constantly blasting out commercial messages. If you're doing that 80%, it buys you the space to have the 20% of actual corporate branded messages, because people will be like, okay, every, I don't know, 8th message, every 8th post is something to do with their brand. That's fine. I can engage with that because the rest of it is so valuable and worthwhile to me as a consumer. Take it personally. So this, again, echoing what Liv said, always put yourself in the mind of your consumer. If you would not watch something on social, your audience won't watch it either. Guaranteed. Even if you're thinking, okay, well, I'm not my audience, I'm not a tradesperson, for example, you should still want to watch the same content as they want to watch, unless it's something highly technical that's a review, in which case maybe not for social media anyway. Always put yourself in their shoes. And also be passionate, because you have to keep waking up every day and thinking up new ideas and pushing the boundaries with social. It shouldn't be something that's just a tick in the box. And finally, going back to what I said last slide, reflect your audience. Your audience is amazing content. Well, they're a huge resource for you. Take inspiration from what they're talking about. Follow what they're following on social media, the same Twitter handles, the same Instagram handles, and reflect those trends, because you're just giving them essentially what they're already asking for. And it's a really easy way of ensuring that your brand meets what your customers are wanting to see. And very quickly, the don'ts. This is a big one. Do not rely on national days. I know how tempting it is. I've been there, when you've got like several months worth of posts to write and you're like, oh, it's National Orange Day. I can write a post about National Orange Day, and that's a really easy way of filling my calendar. You don't care. If I ask you right now to put in the comments, what national day is it? You will not be able to, because it just doesn't really matter in your day-to-day life. Avoid. Don't repeat content. That's for 2 reasons. One of which, it is boring. No one wants to see the same thing twice. And also, the social algorithms will punish you for it. They don't like you to repeat content, and then your page health will decline, which means you'll get less reach. So don't do it. Don't make assumptions about your audience. Always do your research. If you're starting from zero, desk research. Again, look at other communities. If you've already got a community, ask them questions. What do you want to see? What do you want to hear about? Let your community lead your content calendar, because ultimately they're the people that you're trying to impress. Don't post for the sake of posting. Obviously, the impulse is to post at least every day or 3 times a week, or whatever the latest guidance is telling you. But if you're posting the same thing as your competitors are posting, it is pointless. If you're posting just a link to another product, it is pointless. Post something that adds value, or do not post. And finally, and then I promise I'll shut up and you can do questions, don't overuse stock images, because it just makes you look like everybody else. It makes you look like you're not engaged. It makes you look like you're not interested. Obviously, you're going to have to use them from time to time. Fully understand and appreciate that. But if you're using the same woman eating salad and laughing image as everyone else, you're just going to blend into the background. It only takes you 5 minutes to get your iPhone out, snap some pictures yourself that's original content. And you could see that all the way through Liv's slides as well. She's clearly taking pictures of a team. You could be taking pictures of your products. I know that a marketing manager I used to work with would literally go down to the product design lab and just snap, obviously, non-sensitive products and post them on social media. We've all got iPhones. It's very easy to do, and it makes it feel more personal, more human. So those are my do's and don'ts. That was very, very whistle stop. If you have any more questions for me, please feel free to add me on LinkedIn. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, where I do nothing but creep other brands, I'm @LifeNoob. Thank you.
There we go. Amazing. Thanks very much, Beth. I would just like to specify that Thursday, the 22nd, is National Nut Day. So I hope you've all been making posts relevant to that. Right, if I could welcome everybody else back onto the live. We're going to be doing a bit of a Q&A now with all of our speakers today and myself. Just before, whilst people get some questions in, I do just want to kind of raise something, because in the comments, I think this was from Olivia's discussion, the topic of innocent social came up. So I just wanted to flag this now. If nobody's aware of innocent social, I'm just trying to think how would be best to describe it. I guess it's kind of quite knowing. I guess it's quite tongue-in-cheek. You know, it takes quite an unusual slant on things. For instance, I just saw there's a post from the 14th of October. Innocent put on their Facebook saying we're working on something incredibly important this morning, and it's a screenshot of a UK government petitions submission saying make a Kit Kat where all 4 fingers are Kit Kat chunkies. Now, think of that what you will, but I guess that's kind of a little bit of an insight really into what Innocent Social's like. Now, I can see in the comments that there was some response to say that they love Innocent Social, and there's others to say that they totally hate it. Now, I guess my question would be, maybe chucking it back to Olivia this morning, can brands be too smug on social, or is it always better to be daring with stuff, do you think?
I don't know. I can't think of a brand that is too smug. Can you?
I don't know.
I personally think Innocent is really smug. I just like to.
Innocent is.
I find Innocent really smug.
Really?
Yeah, and for me, I wrote a blog about it recently. I personally struggle with brands that are the size of Innocent, so owned by Coca-Cola, or now the size of Brewdog or Converse, which have this sort of I'm a punk vibe when you know that they're backed by sort of multi-millionaires. I personally find it very disingenuous, but I think that's a very difficult line to navigate once you become that size of business, because you can't suddenly change your tone because you've been successful. However, I do think having the odd nod in your content to the fact that, yeah, it is a bit funny that we're a massive company talking like a person is maybe a wise way of offsetting that potential tension. You see what I mean?
Yeah, I think personally that I think it does work for Innocent in the respect, you know, even if there are people who love and they hate it, but it evidently, you know, the fact that we're talking about it says that it's successful in that respect. However, as a tactic, arguably for a new brand, you know, you might fall quite foul of that. So moving on from Innocent, I've got a question for Olivia actually. So this has come from Courtney. The question is, I think I'm finding my own in terms of content, and my engagement is pretty good, but I'm finding it hard converting the engagement to leads. How do you recommend doing this?
So first of all, how long have you been posting your content for? How consistently do you post content? Depending on how long you've been doing it for, you've just got to carry on. If you've not got any leads so far, but your engagement is good, that's an excellent sign that you're doing the right thing. Your content's obviously working, and the key now is to keep posting that content. Look at the content that isn't working. So from a recruitment perspective, for example, I've got a client in mind yesterday, and Becky just reminded me saying Brewdog because he's a recruiter, right? And I feel like this is a safe space, I can talk about it. He's a recruiter, and he was like, I want to be like Brewdog. And I was like, oh, right, okay. You know, that like client expectation and then client budget thing. And that client actually is the person I've got in mind to answer this question. So he had a look at the content that he'd been posting on LinkedIn. I was looking at what had been working, what hadn't been working. All the stuff that had just been flopping, like no likes, anything, no engagement whatsoever, was all just jobs, company updates and all that stuff. All the stuff that had all the likes and all the engagement was more personal stuff, funny stuff, just sort of like quite witty stuff. And I said to him, like, look, this is the stuff that's not working, so stop doing that. Do more of what is working. So if you're not seeing it convert yet, just look at, you're going to have kind of spikes in your content. Look at the stuff that's doing really well and eliminate the stuff that's just not doing anything, that you're using to just tick along, and just focus on that stuff that is getting a lot of engagement. Do it consistently. Just don't give up. I promise it will happen. I mean, I had a little spell recently. I think it was summer, and I was forgetting that it was summer and we're in a global pandemic. But I had about a couple of months where I didn't have any inbound leads, and I was sort of thinking, oh, what's going on? Like, no one's showing much interest via my platform. And then it all came at once, like it's like buses. I had a week that was just mad, all these messages and stuff. I thought, oh, you know, it just takes that consistency, that dedication, and it will happen, especially if you're getting good engagement on your content.
I'd like to add to that because I think it's from Courtney. I think I actually remember Courtney's content from LinkedIn, and I have seen it, and it is really good. And I think 100% just be more consistent, get that consistency there. It will happen. It will come.
Courtney, I think I saw you on video as well on stories, so keep doing that too.
There you go. I'm going to put this out to everybody, so everybody wants to jump on it, because I think this is something that's probably really quite timely, actually. There was quite notably an incident recently of a very kind of well-known brand having a really negatively received post on, I think it was one of their Facebook pages. But anyway, Tom asks, if your brand has had negativity around social content previously, is it risky to start posting more regularly in case the backlash is visible and more damaging to your brand in the long run? So I don't know if anybody wants to jump on that. Jamie, perhaps?
Yeah, I can jump on that. So if your brand is a negative around social content, is it risky to start? I think you really need to kind of address where that backlash is coming from. And because I remember my manager, she was talking about once, you know, they were looking at the backlash on social, and the actual people that were having backlash weren't actually the people buying their products. So understand where that backlash is coming from, and is it actually going to damage your brand? Is it actually the people that are your stakeholders, that kind of thing? And like, be honest and address it. You know, if there is a problem, you know, I think you need to be like, you know, start creating content about that problem. What are you going to do to, you know, solve that negativity? That would be my advice.
But Jamie, I think it ties back as well to what you said earlier, which is about engaging with responses that you're getting on social. So if you're getting backlash for whatever reason that is, it's how you handle that backlash that is going to kind of shape your future social strategy. I think it's called the failure paradox, where it's not about what you did to fail, it's about how you handle that failure, and that is what's going to have the impact on your brand rather than the kind of damage itself. It's how you kind of rescue it. So yeah, focus on that.
100%.
Yeah, I think adding to that as well, I think you very often see brands on social, particularly on Facebook, that currently, for whatever reason, have a really kind of negative lot of engagement. Maybe it's to do with customer service or anything else. And you know, and you really see so often brands just being totally silent on it. And I think for social, that's one of the worst things that you can do, because when you're not talking, somebody else is talking about your brand. So you need to own that. If it is negative, what are you going to do to turn it around? I've got a question for Beth. Whether or not you're going to be able to jump on this, let's see. How to encourage and motivate your sales team to not be sales focused on LinkedIn when their main focus is to generate leads. That's from Grace.
Okay, so I've actually had to deal with this issue quite a few times in my former role. And the first thing that I would say is, don't give it to your sales team. As a consumer, think about it yourself. If you see someone with the title sales coming into your inbox on LinkedIn, you just don't read it. So it should be coming from someone who is as high up in the business as possible. I'm not necessarily saying that they are the people who write the content. I obviously understand that your technical manager or your marketing director is likely very busy, but you can write that content for them. And when they put it out, it feels a lot more authoritative and a lot more powerful. If it has to come from your sales team, I would suggest, again, it sounds very annoying and time consuming, but at the start, creating the content for them, because ultimately salespeople are results driven. If you can create content for them that absolutely works and they can see the number of connections growing, the number of engagements growing, and they're much more likely to start following that pattern of content. So essentially, to summarize, 2 parts. Number 1, don't use your sales team unless you have to. Number 2, whoever you have that's representing your brand on LinkedIn, provide the content for them as a starting point, and then hopefully over time, they'll see the results and feel motivated to generate their own content as well.
Excellent. We've had a question as well in our Q&A box, and anybody who fancies this, do you encourage jumping on trends or making new ones? Is it even possible to make a new trend?
Yeah, I suppose you don't set out with the idea of making something that is a trend. You just do something and it becomes a trend. I would encourage jumping on trends, but in a very timely manner, and that is the most important thing. There's nothing more cringe than when people are doing things 2 weeks after the trend was already a trend. With social, everything moves so incredibly quickly. So if your brand is going to jump on a trend, it has to be literally that day. You know, there's loads of, I can't think of an example now, but I always see it on Twitter where a big brand, it'd be someone like, I don't know, Tesco, and they're jumping onto a trend like 2 weeks later, and you're like, guys, we're over it now. Like, this is boring now. So yeah, I totally encourage jumping on trends, but it has to honestly be that day if you're going to do it.
George, I think you should jump in here and tell people about your incredible trend that you created for TikTok, which it was meant to be, but it never happened.
You know, Jamie, thanks for bringing that up, mate. No, so this is kind of a personal example in some respects. So we when we first kind of got on TikTok with On the Tools, and it was still in some respects in its infancy from, I think, a brand perspective. We thought we'd set about and seen if we could set up a new trend that was going to be relevant to our audience of construction, but also going to be kind of something that people could pick up who weren't in construction as well. So something that was really popular and has been for a long time on our page is this thing that guys do on site where they get a tape measure and they extend the tape measure out, and then they roll the Malteser down the tape measure and they catch it. You know, they might be on scaffolding or whatever. Well, so taking that and totally plagiarising it, which is what I'm very good at, I decided, why don't we be a bit more healthy than a Malteser and use a grape, obviously coining the grape measure challenge. We actually recorded a video from our old office in Faisley where I caught a grape. I was nearly blinded in the process, actually. I mean, it was probably going to have been the first time anybody's ever been blinded by a grape. But hey. Anyway, we put it out on TikTok. It did get picked up a few times, but did it go viral? Was it a new trend? Well, let me ask you this. Have you ever heard of the Grape Measure Challenge? I think the answer is no. So I think the answer to that is trying to create your own trend is really difficult. People do it. I mean, just look at TikTok and the success of the influencers there. Like, it's unbelievable. But trying to create as a brand, it could fall really flat. So next question. This one comes from Kit. This is to all panelists, or anybody who'd like to answer. How do you manage having a split audience who are very different, i.e. large corporate suppliers and everyday small money consumers?
From my perspective, the first thing I'd say is be smart about your channels. If they are large corporate suppliers, then reach them on LinkedIn. Going back to what I said earlier, I would personally go down a prospecting route. I've always found that really successful. So empower your technical director, your CEO, whoever, to be reaching out, offering really valuable content on LinkedIn in a way that's going to engage those key decision makers that are higher up. And then maybe use Facebook for your everyday small money consumers, because that's where your everyday small money consumers are going to be. But whatever you do, this is personal opinion, and I know there's a bit of debate about this, do not mix those channels. If you're going to only approach small business consumers on Facebook, only approach small business consumers on Facebook and then reserve LinkedIn for your large corporations. It just gets very messy when you try and reach multiple audiences through the same mouthpiece, if you see what I'm saying.
Olivia, I see you nodding along. Would you concur with all of that?
Totally. And just to add to it as well is, again, it goes back to speaking to everyone on your level. They might be a big corporate supplier. They might work in construction. They might work in marketing. They might work in insurance. Everyone is human at the end of the day. You've got to create that relatable content in order for them to engage. And then I think you want to do a bit of a split as to kind of more general relatable content as opposed to more targeted content. And that ties in with what Beth was saying about using the right platforms and the right voices for that.
Excellent. I just wanted to ask a question actually to everybody, if you care to answer, is if a brand's just kind of starting out with their social, they might already have an account across the board, but is there a particular platform that you would recommend a brand starting out on? Would it be Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, or is there any perhaps that you wouldn't recommend a brand starting out on if they're only really just kind of growing their social?
Because I do think, going back to the last point, that's very dependent on what type of business it is. But I would say don't start with Twitter, because as much as I personally absolutely love Twitter, in order to make Twitter fly, you have to be on it all day, every day, engaging, responding, finding conversations, joining them, because actually people use Twitter to discuss things, to start dialogue, start conversations. They're not just going to consume a tweet deck preloaded with 50 tweets for the month. So it's actually very labor intensive. And I therefore think until you have a resource in-house dedicated to it, it's kind of a waste of time on your part.
Yeah, definitely. I'd probably just add to that as well. You know, that there'll probably be a danger of trying to spread yourself too thin because of that. And, you know, trying to, especially with TikTok and, you know, newer platforms kind of emerging now, feeling that you've got to be on everything because that's where everybody else is, I think, you know, could end up being a bit of a downfall. Jamie, I've got a question for you. This is from our Q&A. Do you think Reels will ever overtake TikTok?
So glad you asked this one, mate. I'm obsessed with Reels. Well, if you look at kind of like what the Reels is doing right now, I think Reels is showing really, really good engagement, and that's because Facebook turned the engagement tabs on. And we personally from On The Tools, I mean, George can talk about this than I can, but you know, we've seen some really good follow growth off Reels. So in terms of using it as right now, I'd definitely jump on it and see how you can use it. Obviously, try and not use the same content as TikTok. Will Reels ever overtake TikTok though? I think I saw someone from Social Chain actually, Oliver Yonchev, their managing director for the US. It might have been Katy, their creative director for the US actually. He explained that Instagram's going through a bit of an identity crisis at the minute, and I 100% agree. You know, it doesn't really know what it should be anymore. It used to be this super, super simple platform that you know, you knew what you were going on for. Now I can, you know, they've got shops, which I actually think for Instagram is really good. Now I've got Reels, I've got stories, I've got the main posts, I've got IGTV. I don't believe that Reels will overtake TikTok. No, I'm just going to say no, because it's not what it's native for that platform. You know, will stories on YouTube overtake Instagram stories on? No, they won't. But there'll be a really helpful additional to the platform. I think where Reels might benefit from is perhaps being, there's no kind of like search term for it. Like you can't search for Reels. They kind of just appear in your feed or in your thing. Obviously you can go on people's individual profiles and do that way. Maybe I would perhaps like to see them integrated with stories. I think that would help as well. And I think people would find it more useful. But no, I don't think it will overtake Reels will overtake it, but you should absolutely be taking advantage of the engagement on there right now because it's really good.
Yeah, I think I agree with that, and I think I'd probably add as well that the only way I could see TikTok kind of being knocked off its perch is if it was for a factor that was kind of, you know, more political. Everybody's probably aware of the fact that it was up until only very recently that TikTok was going to be banned in the US, and they've had a lot of issues as well due to perhaps the nature of their ownership model being a Chinese-owned company, and you know, there's a lot of kind of political issues around that. So the only way you could see it is if something happened or transpired that meant that they were knocked off their kind of market share value in different countries, which would then maybe lead to a kind of real stepping in. But I think for that reason, Jamie's totally right. It's a fantastic time to kind of get involved with it. I think I just have one final question from me, because I think we've probably used up all of our guest questions and time now. Is just stories. LinkedIn has just started stories, I believe. Stories are also on YouTube now and everywhere else. If your brand isn't, should they be using stories, and where should they be using stories? Anybody who wants to answer?
I think LinkedIn is facing a similar identity crisis to Instagram at the moment. LinkedIn is trying to be everything and no one knows what they're meant to be doing on it. It's just, you know, there's all these different support, celebrate, love, all of that stuff. There's stories, there's all sorts of things at the moment when they're not actually focusing on like the core functionality of it anyway. That's another discussion for another time. And so I think with LinkedIn stories in particular, I think it needs to settle down, to be honest, for a little bit. This week has been mad with it. Everyone's finding their feet. Everyone's just posting pictures of their morning coffee or their office or, you know, things like that. And I think it just needs a bit of, it's also very glitchy right now. It's been launched, but It's, yeah, the functionality of it isn't great. Also, what's available I don't think is great. I was expecting it to be a little bit more Instagram, bit more like Instagram with what you can do with stories, but it's very basic right now. And I think, yeah, over the next few weeks, people will be figuring out what works and what doesn't. In terms of where your brand should be, though, again, I think that comes down to what channel you're focusing on, and if that is LinkedIn, then I think absolutely start using LinkedIn stories, but just avoid all of that mundane stuff, and avoid stuff that you see on Instagram or Facebook or YouTube, and try and create it for your audience that are on LinkedIn.
Yeah, just to add to that, I think you know, if you look at like the more traditional platforms where stories has been there for a couple of years, like for example Instagram, like Instagram engagements in stories actually overtook engagements in the feed, which was an incredible stat. So the people are there and the people want content on there. And I think you can get super creative with, you know, lots of different things in like polls, and, you know, you can even create like actual mini games in stories. So there's so much opportunity in stories, and it's something that, again, that Instagram and Facebook are pushing. You know, Facebook, you know, you've started to see that they've, now you start seeing Facebook stories more on the actual platform. So again, it's something to push. And anytime, you know, Facebook and Instagram are pushing a new product or feature, they push the engagement behind it as well. So you should be taking advantage of it. But LinkedIn stories, yeah, I agree with Olivia. Just got to wait and see, don't we? It might work, it might not. The engagement's okay, but who knows?
There we go. So I think we'll kind of call it a day there. Thank you for all of your questions coming in today. Thank you very much, Olivia, for joining us this morning. It's been a pleasure to hear.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Beth. It's been very insightful. Thank you, Jamie. Thank you to everybody watching. You've been fantastic. But most of all, thank you to me, who I think we can all agree I've been great. So thanks, guys. I hope to see you in the next webinar, and have a very lovely day.
Bye.